What on earth is going on, Edward? Talk to us. Give us the real story, please.
If we knew what was going on, it would be a big help. We're completely baffled. I think even Tyson Fury's own promoters are baffled. We've been working really hard. I saw his post today on Instagram, which, the dates and the various bits weren't true. What is true is ourselves and Queensberry have been working very hard to try and finalise the biggest fight in boxing. On Monday, we sent our final version of the contract to Queensberry, the same day that Tyson Fury announced that the fight was off and he wasn't going to wait for Anthony Joshua anymore. So we kind of downed tools. And then today we got some comments back from Queensberry from our draft contract on Monday. And I can't really fault Queensberry or Matchroom or the job we've done in trying to make this fight. We're really like 10 days to 2 weeks in to negotiating the biggest fight in boxing. I'm sorry, Tyson Fury, but it does take a little bit of time. And, the bulk of the terms are done, but there's a lot of commercial conversations that need to take place that make sure that AJ's commercial deals and rights are protected, that we can all share in the show, because obviously it's a financial split as well. But, I'm surprised AJ is even still involved in these discussions, because if I was him, I would have said, jog on, do one. I'm just coming off Alexander Usyk back-to-back and 2 defeats. I've agreed to everything you put to me. A date that really wasn't ideal, a split, a rematch clause that I've got to give you to get this fight, and you're changing your mind every day. I think he wants to fight Manuel Charr. I think he wants an easy touch in December, and I think he's going to use this whole experience to basically say, sorry, public, I've tried my best, but Queensberry aren't putting us under any pressure or deadlines to make a deal, because they know where we're up to. And honestly, everyone's working hard to try and make the fight, but I just don't believe a word Tyson Fury says, and I have my doubts the fight will happen in December.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I think there's been a sea change, Eddie. And you said, I think a few weeks ago, that Tyson Fury is very good at convincing people that he's telling the truth, that he's told an awful lot of porky pies, it's fair to say, but a lot of people buy what he's selling. But I think the fighting fans, if you read the comments, and okay, it's a small sample size, but the sea is changing on that. There are a lot of people now that basically are not buying what he's selling anymore, and that's going to come back to bite him eventually, because you lose credibility at the end of the day. I mean, from your point of view, do you give any credence whatsoever to any of these kind of appearances that he's making on social media, or do you just ignore the whole thing?
I mean, it's difficult to ignore the whole thing, because these are fighting men. So, when he comes out and effectively abuses Anthony Joshua and tells him, you've missed your chance, mate, off you go, you're on the scrap heap, like, you almost feel like, why are you giving the opportunity to fight him? The reason is because AJ wants to become a world champion again, and he wants to fight Tyson Fury. But I've noticed that as well. I must say, it's very frustrating when sometimes you read the comments and, you're getting the rough end of the stick off Tyson Fury's antics. But I've seen a big sea of change from the fans to say, and to be honest, I've done so many interviews today about this, it becomes tedious for fight fans. Like, I almost don't want to talk about it anymore. And we've kept complete radio silence during these negotiations because we want to make the fight. And the minute you start talking, the minute you start upsetting people, it becomes harder to do a deal. I've been guilty of that in the past. So I see now the fight fans saying, look, you can't go from Usyk and AJ to fighting Manuel Charr. And I think if he does, there's going to be a huge backlash on Tyson Fury, in all honesty. But look, he's a character, he's a great fighter. I wish him all the best. But our priority is with Anthony Joshua, and we want to make sure that obviously everything's done in the right way for him. He's accepted the fight. We're ready to make that happen. But we're not going to be sort of, just begging to unrealistic timeframes and demands to when they're not even being ordered by his team. It's just through Tyson Fury on Instagram. So it's very frustrating. We don't really know where we stand, but I guess we have no choice but to crack on.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that, Eddie. We're getting a raft of messages in for you, as I knew we would this evening. I guess the overriding question is, strip away Tyson Fury's histrionics, if we can call them that. You have been in this business a long time. December 3rd, honestly, Eddie, does it happen?
I think as we sit here now, I'd say no. I mean, I've just opened up Instagram and saw he's called out Manuel Char again, and he's calling him out like this is a guy who's actually a credible heavyweight. I mean, he's saying, you're the one, Manuel, you've got the guts. You're like, this is a guy who's not even rated. Like, it's just such a chronic mismatch. If you can't fight AJ, fight Joe Joyce.
Yeah.
It's a great fight. He's ready to go. Same promotional company. So, for a long time, Tyson, 1 minute he's retired. At one stage he was giving his entire purse to the homeless. I've actually had people stop me in the street saying, "Oh, I love Tyson Fury. He gave all his purse to the homeless." I'm just sitting there going, I can't believe what I'm hearing here, And it's like, but look, he's a character and he's good for the sport. But when you're on the other end and you're trying to make a fight happen, and again, I can't fault Queensbury. Actually, the negotiations have gone very smoothly up until he has an Instagram burst and says, "Fight's off the table, you dosser." And then you go, okay then. And then 2 days later, he comes back and says, "Actually, do you want it?" And it's like, well, is it or is it not? And we just feel like we're wasting our time. But we've spent 10 days, 2 weeks with 4 or 5 people trying to get this fight made. So it's frustrating, but AJ's proved over the years. When you talk about Manuel Char and these kind of people, show me the Manuel Chars that AJ's fought in the last 4 or 5 years. He's gone tough fight to tough fight to tough fight, and it seems that sometimes he doesn't get the credit for his resume, but Tyson gets a pass to fight these kind of guys.
Assuming that December the 3rd, which was, of course, was never AJ's preferred date in the first place, doesn't happen, what do you envisage for AJ? Is it an early 2023 fight? I mean, Deontay Wilder has been once again making noises about a fight with AJ. Have you got anyone in mind if it's not Fury?
Yeah, we want to go in December. It's quite deflating after you've been through this process. Then you find out it's not Tyson Fury, and does that run us into January or February? Maybe, but really, ideally, we'd like to go in December. I have my doubts that will be Tyson Fury. If they want to give us the time to do it, and we're not talking weeks, we're just talking about a process that's natural in any big fight, then we're prepared to still go through it. But it's quite disheartening to read his comments today, and I'll speak to AJ tonight, and hopefully we can keep him in the game because he wants to fight, and it's not ideal timing for him. December 3rd, coming off the Usyk defeat, but he felt like, if I don't fight him now, I may never get the chance. So I'm prepared to do it. And if we can find a way, we will. If not, we'll move on.
Well, listen, before that, Eddie, you're going to be over in this part of the world. We're excited for November 5th. I just wonder, how big of a night is it for you in Matchroom? We know that you've dipped your toe in the water a couple of times over in Saudi Arabia, first time in Abu Dhabi. I mean, let's strip it back. Just how important is it for you that a successful night is had? And I guess the obvious question that a lot of fight fans might be having, I mean, if it is a success, are we talking Canelos? Are we talking AJs down the line? Are these even discussions that you've had with Abu Dhabi DCT?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, the plan is to give everyone a night they'll never forget on November 5th. And that's why we're stacking the card so deeply with so much talent, so many great fights, that everybody tuned in on DAZN or at the Etihad Arena will walk away and say, wow, boxing is born in Abu Dhabi. And that is the plan, to bring a long-term partnership with DCT, to bring boxing to Abu Dhabi from the grassroots level all the way to the elite level of the sport, to increase participation, to inspire that next generation, to bring fans from around the world to Abu Dhabi as really a fight destination. And that's going to take a little bit of time because of course, fight fans around the world liken that with Las Vegas and Madison Square Garden in New York. But with the plans that we have with DCT, I see Abu Dhabi coming as a major, major fight destination. And the names that you mentioned, all in play for 2023. Canelo Alvarez, Katie Taylor, Anthony Joshua. These are the kind of stars you're going to see coming to Abu Dhabi. And it all starts with a night that I believe fight fans and sports fans won't forget. Whatever you're doing November 5th, whether you're in Abu Dhabi, whether you're in Dubai, wherever you can get to the Etihad on November 5th, you need to be there, because globally this night, this card is recognised as one of the best fight nights of the year so far.
It's so exciting for us down here in the UAE, Eddie, because Chris and I have lived out here for years. Boxing has kind of been bubbling up underneath the surface. There is a local scene here that the big fights have happened. There have been a few in Dubai. Carl Frampton had his last fight here. There have been one or two, but this is obviously a bit of a game changer. And from all your experience of staging fights around the world, from Las Vegas to Saudi Arabia to all these other places, What impact can a fight of this magnitude have on grassroots boxing in terms of, yes, inspiring, but also, building that infrastructure which allows maybe an Arab champion to come up through the ranks?
Well, you need to be able to see it and to actually see it's possible. And you can talk about boxing in the region, but unless you bring these stars here, unless you inspire that next generation, I don't think you can grow grassroots boxing in the same way. Now, like you say, Arab boxers have a platform and the ability to be part of major shows in their country and in the region. And that's so important. But the reason that we teamed up with DCT is to make sure that we can have a long-term plan. One-off events just don't work when you're talking about inspiring the next generation, when you're talking about building the numbers at the grassroots level. But ultimately, that's all nice. But if we can produce a star from the region, from the UAE, it will change the sport forever in the country and in the region. And there's no reason why we can't. We're looking to develop not just our own business and have offices in Abu Dhabi, but from a gym level, from a excellence level, from a performance level, to give these young fighters the coaching, the facilities that they need to go on and become major names within the sport.
Cannot wait for this. It all starts November 5th. You can get your tickets exclusively at EtihadArena.ae. Prices starting at 295 dirhams. It is an all-singing, all-dancing fight card. Boxing has finally arrived. Big-time boxing to the United Arab Emirates.
It's a fantastic fight. We were just saying, Chris and I, it's the biggest fight the UAE has ever staged in boxing, which makes it historic, of course. It is for the light heavyweight title. How are preparations going on your side?
Well, great. I mean, it just shows you how much Dimitri Bivol enjoyed his trip to Abu Dhabi, because he's already there for his fight 5 weeks away. It's a massive fight for the division. I mean, Dimitri Bivol obviously beat Canelo Alvarez, the pound-for-pound number one, and Ramirez, undefeated fighter, huge name and huge star in Mexico and America. And not just that, 3 world championship fights on the card, an undisputed female fight as well. It's a massive night of boxing, really globally, but of course for the region and for Abu Dhabi and UAE, just a game-changing moment to launch boxing in the territory, and what a way to do it November 5th.
Absolutely, Eddie. Listen, it goes without saying, the real boxing aficionados, they don't need to be introduced to Dimitri Bivol. We spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about the boxer, if you will. What about the man? What can you tell us about Dimitri? Because I think he's the selling point, given what he did to Saul Canelo Alvarez 6 months or so ago. Dimitri Bivol, the man, Eddie. Tell us about him.
A quiet man, really, family man, a tough man, cold man. Don't forget, this guy went to Las Vegas on Cinco de Mayo in front of 20,000 Mexicans and beat Canelo Alvarez really in his backyard of Las Vegas, and did so really without raising the pulse too much. He's a guy that chases legacy. He really wants that undisputed strap at 175. To do that, he'd have to beat Artur Beterbiev, which is an incredible fight. But first, he's really got his hands full on November 5th.
Yeah, he certainly has. I mean, Ramirez himself, unbeaten, Eddie. I mean, we talk often about boxers kind of weaving their way through divisions and avoiding certain fights, maybe being a bit cute with who decide to match up against. Whereas this is basically the toughest fight he could have picked to follow up from Canelo, which is, I guess, a measure of his own character.
Yeah, Bivol's not really about taking easy fights. He's about legacy. He's about beating the best fighters in the world. And Zurdo Ramirez, is a former world champion at super middleweight. He wants a shot to become a 2-time world champion. Both of them appreciate and realise how difficult this fight is. Of course, Ramirez, undefeated fighter, huge star in the US and Mexico, part of Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy team. They'll all be there as well. They believe they can win this fight. And there's a lot on the line for both men, and particularly in the division as well.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.